November 18th, 1946, 10:47 p.m. Small's Paradise, 2294 7th Avenue. Bumpy Johnson stood at the bar, alone. 3 envelopes sat before him on mahogany. Inside each, rejection letters from every underground casino between 125th and 145th Street. Frank Costello's signature at the bottom. The Prime Minister of the Underworld had spoken. Bumpy Johnson was blacklisted, banned, erased from every gaming table in New York City. The man who controlled Harlem's numbers couldn't place a bet anywhere in 5 boroughs. 48 witnesses watched Bumpy read those letters. They waited for rage, for violence, for the explosion everyone knew was coming. Instead, Bumpy folded each letter, slipped them into his jacket pocket, ordered another bourbon, and smiled. What happened next rewrote the rules of organized crime forever. By Friday morning, Bumpy Johnson owned 3 casinos. 2 months earlier, Harlem was a powder keg wrapped in silk and jazz music. Ellsworth Raymond Bumpy Johnson wasn't just another gangster with a gun and ambition. He was the brain behind Stephanie St. Clair's numbers empire, the man who had beaten Dutch Schultz at his own game, the strategist who turned street lottery into a multi-million-dollar operation that employed half of Harlem. While other criminals ruled through fear alone, Bumpy ruled through respect, intelligence, and a code that made him untouchable in his own neighborhood. He paid for funerals, funded schools, protected the community from outside predators. He was 40 years old at the absolute peak of his power, and everyone from 110th Street to the Bronx knew his name. Post-war Harlem was booming with returning soldiers, new money, and dangerous opportunities. The Italian mobs downtown were eyeing uptown territory with hungry eyes. Lucky Luciano was in exile, but his commission still ran the city's underworld with iron-fisted coordination. Frank Costello, Luciano's successor, controlled politicians, judges, cops, and every major gambling operation from Atlantic City to Chicago. The Italians had always let Harlem operate semi-independently, a gentleman's agreement that kept the peace. But agreements only lasted until someone got greedy. Costello wanted Harlem's numbers revenue under commission control. Bumpy was the only thing standing in his way. The collision was inevitable. The question wasn't if war would come. The question was who would fire first. Francesco Castiglia, known to the world as Frank Costello, wasn't called the Prime Minister for nothing. While other mob bosses collected bodies, Costello collected politicians. He owned judges like most men own ties. In 1946, he controlled slot machines in 14 states, generating $40 million annually. Head survived Murder Incorporated, the Castellamarese War, and Lucky Luciano's deportation by being smarter, quieter, and more politically connected than everyone else. He didn't need to kill you. He could destroy your life with 3 phone calls, 2 to police commissioners, 1 to a federal judge. Costello specialized in making problems disappear through channels so legitimate they couldn't be traced back to him. His motivation was simple: consolidation. The commission wanted a unified gambling empire, all revenue flowing through proper channels, all independents either absorbed or eliminated. Bumpy's numbers operation generated an estimated $30 million per year. That money should flow through commission-approved channels, pay proper tribute, acknowledge proper hierarchy. Bumpy's independence was an insult to the natural order Frank Costello had spent decades building. Costello had already eliminated 6 independent operators in Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. 2 accepted buyouts. 3 mysteriously found themselves under federal investigation. 1 disappeared entirely. His success rate was perfect. His methods were surgical. He controlled 273 gambling establishments across the eastern seaboard. He had connections to Tammany Hall, the NYPD, and 3 sitting congressmen. His word carried the weight of the entire Italian-American Mafia. On November 15th, Costello sent word through his intermediaries. A simple message delivered to every casino, card room, and betting parlor in New York: Ellsworth Johnson is not welcome. Any establishment serving him would lose commission protection. Effective immediately. No appeals, no exceptions. Costello's plan was elegant in its simplicity and brutality. You couldn't kill Bumpy Johnson without starting a war that would destroy Harlem and bring federal attention nobody wanted. But you could humiliate him, strip away the social fabric that made him powerful. Gambling was theater, status, community. Ban Bumpy from the tables and you declared him untouchable, a pariah. You didn't need to shoot him. You just needed to make him irrelevant. Costello wagered that Bumpy's pride would force a reaction, and that reaction would give the commission legal justification to move in with overwhelming force. It was a trap disguised as an insult. Every move Bumpy made would tighten the noose. Small's Paradise was the crown jewel of Harlem nightlife, a 2-story Art Deco palace where jazz breathed through the walls like a living thing. On that Monday night, the basement casino hummed with the click of dice, shuffle of cards, spin of roulette wheels. Blue cigarette smoke hung thick under amber lights. 63 patrons crowded around 12 gaming tables. The house band upstairs played Dizzy Gillespie, while money changed hands in the shadows below. Behind the bar stood Willie the Gent Johnson, no relation, who ran the gaming operation for a consortium of commission-backed investors. The air smelled of expensive cologne, bootleg whiskey, and the electric tension of money in motion. Addresses everyone knew by heart. Small's at 2294 7th connected through basement tunnels to 3 other establishments on the same block, creating an underground gambling empire that operated with police cooperation purchased through Costello's political machine. At 10:47 p.m., Bumpy walked in through the 7th Avenue entrance. 63 conversations stopped mid-sentence. The piano player upstairs hit a wrong note. Willie the Gent's hand moved instinctively toward the telephone behind the bar. Everyone knew what those envelopes meant. Everyone knew Costello's ban was in effect. Everyone understood that Bumpy's presence was a declaration of war wrapped in a tailored suit and calm expression. 3 of Costello's men sat at the corner table, sent specifically to witness this moment and report back. They wore the smug confidence of men backed by unstoppable power. At 10:52, Willie approached with the envelopes, laid them down with trembling hands. "Mr. Johnson, these came from downtown. I got orders. I can't—" Bumpy raised one finger. Willie stopped talking. Bumpy opened the first envelope with methodical precision, read it completely, folded it, opened the second. Same process. Third envelope, same calm. His face revealed nothing, no anger, no surprise, nothing. The silence in that basement was absolute. You could hear ice melting in glasses. Costello's men leaned forward, anticipating the explosion, anticipating rage, threats, the moment when Bumpy Johnson would make the fatal mistake that justified commission retaliation. At 10:58, Bumpy placed all 3 letters in his inside jacket pocket, buttoned it, smoothed the fabric. He looked at Willie. Bourbon, neat. Willie poured with shaking hands. Bumpy drank, slow, deliberate, tasting every drop. Then he smiled. Not a smirk, not a grimace. A genuine smile that sent ice water through every spine in that room. He set the glass down with a soft click against mahogany, turned toward the door, walked out without another word, without looking back, without the explosion everyone expected. The door closed behind him at 11:03 p.m. The room finally exhaled. Costello's men reached for the telephone. This needed to be reported immediately. Their boss had won. Or so they thought. What Frank Costello didn't know was that Bumpy had received word about the ban 4 days before those letters arrived. A commission secretary in Costello's own office, a woman named Dorothy Reed, whose brother Bumpy had helped avoid a false murder charge in 1943, had made a phone call, one conversation that changed everything. Bumpy knew about the casino ban before Costello's intermediaries delivered the official word. He had 96 hours to prepare, while Costello thought he was springing a surprise attack. Those 4 days made all the difference. November 16th, Bumpy met with 3 independent casino operators in Harlem, who resented paying commission tribute but feared Costello's retaliation. Harold Fatso Jenkins ran a card room on 135th Street. Raymond Cruz operated a basement casino on Lenox Avenue. Marcus Sweet Washington controlled a high-stakes poker operation inside the basement of the Apollo Theater building. All 3 were drowning in commission protection fees that consumed 40% of their profits. All 3 were terrified. Bumpy offered partnership, his protection, his connections, his reputation. In exchange, he wanted ownership stakes, 51% each. They had 24 hours to decide. By November 17th, all 3 signed. Deals sealed in handshakes and contracts witnessed by Harlem's most respected ministers and businessmen. Legal and binding. November 17th, 11 p.m. Bumpy visited Small's Paradise before Willie received those envelopes. He met with the consortium that owned the establishment, made them an offer they couldn't calculate the wisdom of refusing. Had been their silent partner all along, holding 30% through a legitimate business entity established years earlier. Now he wanted them to go public with that partnership. Full-page announcement in the Amsterdam News. His name on the liquor license. Everything above board. In exchange, Head increased security, improve their political connections through his relationships with Harlem's growing political class, and guarantee commissioner protection from everyone except Costello. After 6 hours of negotiation, they agreed. When those 3 envelopes hit the bar at 10:47 p.m. on November 18th, Bumpy already owned controlling interest in 3 casinos and public partnership in a 4th. Costello's ban was meaningless. You can't ban a man from establishments he controls. The letters were theater. Bumpy's smile was the curtain call. He walked out of Small's Paradise and directly into a waiting car that drove him to 135th Street, where Harold Fatso Jenkins had champagne waiting and a renovated casino ready for its grand reopening under new management. Friday, November 22, 1946. Full-page advertisements ran in the Amsterdam News and New York Age. Under new management, Jenkins Card Room, Cruz Social Club, Sweets Poker Palace. Proprietor, Ellsworth R. Johnson. Addresses listed, hours posted. Legitimate business licenses displayed. Everything legal, everything documented, everything impossible to touch without revealing commission corruption to federal authorities. Bumpy stood in Sweet's Poker Palace that Friday evening, held a glass of bourbon, looked at the 40 witnesses packed into the room, spoke quietly, but his words carried. Mr. Costello thought he could write me out of the story. But you can't ban an author from his own book. You can't exile a king from his kingdom. And you certainly can't humiliate a man who's 3 steps ahead of your best move. He placed a playing card face up on the green felt table. The ace of spades. Tell the Prime Minister I'm holding court. Has welcome to visit, if he can get past the door. By Saturday morning, Frank Costello received reports that made his legendary calm evaporate completely. Bumpy hadn't just survived the ban. Head used it as a business opportunity to consolidate power Costello didn't know he was building. 3 independent operators now flew Bumpy's flag. A 4th publicly acknowledged his partnership. The legal structures were airtight. built through legitimate channels Costello couldn't touch without exposing his own illegal operations to federal scrutiny. Commissioned soldiers reported that Harlem's streets were celebrating, not rioting. Bumpy had turned humiliation into coronation. The trap had sprung on the wrong target. At 9:37 a.m., Costello threw a telephone through his office window. The Prime Minister of the Underworld had been outmaneuvered by a Harlem numbers runner head, dismissed as a local problem. The commission called an emergency meeting that Sunday, 8 families represented. The question on the table: do we go to war over Harlem? The math didn't support it. Bumpy's operations were now too legitimate to dismantle without massive federal attention. His community support made street-level retaliation impossible without civilian casualties that would bring congressional investigations. His political connections to Harlem's growing black political class created complications Costello couldn't navigate. And most importantly, Bumpy hadn't technically violated any commission rules. Head simply refused to be crushed by them. After 11 hours of discussion, the commission made a decision that shocked the underworld. They'd leave Harlem alone. Grant Bumpy Johnson informal recognition as an independent operator, a first for any black gangster in American history. Bumpy Johnson's position after that weekend was unassailable. He controlled 7 gambling establishments outright, held partnerships in 12 more, and commanded the respect of every criminal organization in New York City. The man Costello tried to ban from every casino now owned the house. His legend in Harlem reached mythological status. The story spread through every barbershop, church basement, and street corner. Bumpy beat the Italians at their own game without firing a shot. He became the chess master, the strategist, the proof that black operators could compete with and defeat the most powerful criminal organizations in America. November 18, 1946 marked a turning point in organized crime history that most textbooks overlook. For the first time, an African-American operator successfully resisted Italian Mafia consolidation and emerged stronger. Bumpy's victory demonstrated that intelligence and preparation could defeat superior resources and political connections. His strategy became studied in Harlem's streets, like military generals study Napoleon. He proved that the real power wasn't in the guns you carried, but in the information you gathered, the relationships you built, and the moves you made while your enemy thought they were winning. This moment established the precedent that black criminal enterprises could exist independently, negotiate from positions of strength, and demand respect on equal terms. What this reveals about Bumpy Johnson is fundamental to understanding why he remained legendary long after his death. He didn't fight like other gangsters. He thought like a general, planned like a politician, and executed like a businessman. While Frank Costello wielded power through fear and political corruption, Bumpy wielded power through community respect and strategic brilliance. He understood that true dominance wasn't about controlling people through violence, but about creating situations where violence became unnecessary because UD already won. His philosophy separated him from every other crime boss of his era. The smartest move is the one your enemy doesn't see until it's too late to counter. Real power isn't about who has the most guns or the biggest organization. It's about who controls the board while everyone else is still learning the rules. Costello had armies, politicians, and unlimited resources. Bumpy had 96 hours and 1 phone call from a grateful secretary. That was enough. If this story showed you why Bumpy Johnson was the smartest operator in Harlem history, hit that subscribe button. Drop a like if you respect the code that separated legends. From Thugs. Comment below, what would you have done with those 4 days of advance warning? Next week, we're covering the time Bumpy walked into a meeting with Lucky Luciano unarmed and walked out with control of the entire Harlem numbers operation. You won't believe how he pulled it off.